Welcome back, Coinology. When we talk about United States coins, one of the most fascinating and collectible pieces in modern American numismatics is the 1984 1-cent coin, also known as the Lincoln penny, which carries with it not just the small denomination value of 1 cent but a much larger historical importance, a unique story of design, a symbol of American heritage, and in some rare cases, an astronomical value that collectors have paid that runs into millions of dollars. The 1984 1-cent coin may look ordinary in everyday circulation, but what many people do not realize is that this coin, minted in the early 1980s, has now become the subject of great attention in the numismatic community, with some extremely rare error versions and special conditions selling for staggering amounts, with valuations reaching as high as $184 million in the current collectible coin market, making it one of the most unbelievable stories in the history of coins. The 1984 Lincoln cent continues the long tradition of the Lincoln penny, a coin first introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed originally by Victor David Brenner, the Lincoln penny was the very first U.S. coin to feature the portrait of an actual historical figure rather than symbolic imagery of liberty. By the time we arrive in 1984, the Lincoln cent had already been circulating for 75 years, and its obverse design still proudly displayed the right-facing portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, one of the most revered figures in American history, the president who led the nation through the Civil War and whose legacy continues to be celebrated on coinage to this day. The 1984 cent is part of a critical period in U.S. coinage, as just 2 years earlier in 1982, the composition of the 1-cent coin was permanently changed. Before 1982, the penny had been primarily composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc, weighing 3.11 grams. But due to the rising cost of copper, the United States Mint made a major shift. From mid-1982 onward, pennies were struck in a composition of 97.5% zinc with a thin copper plating of just 2.5%, bringing the weight down to 2.5 grams. Therefore, the 1984 penny is of the zinc and copper-plated type, much lighter than the older copper-based pennies. This detail of composition is important to collectors, as the weight and metallic content help distinguish the true 1984 cent from earlier years, and sometimes transitional errors can appear where an older copper planchet was mistakenly used in later years. If such a coin exists for 1984, it would be incredibly rare and worth astronomical sums. On the obverse side of the 1984 penny, we see Lincoln's portrait facing right, with the word liberty to his left, the motto "In God We Trust" at the top, and the date 1984 to his right. If there is a mint mark, such as D4 Denver, it appears just below the date. Most 1984 pennies were struck either in Philadelphia, which traditionally bore no mint mark, or in Denver, which carried the D mint mark. A small number were also minted as proofs at the San Francisco Mint, which bear the S mint mark. The reverse of the 1984 cent still features the design introduced in 1959 by Frank Gasparo, showing the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., with the inscriptions United States of America at the top, E pluribus unum just above the memorial, and 1 cent at the bottom. Within the memorial, careful observers can even see a tiny representation of the seated statue of Lincoln, a design detail that adds charm to the reverse. But what makes the 1984 penny stand out in the history of coinage is not just its common design but the errors and rare varieties that occurred during its production. Perhaps the most famous of all is the 1984 doubled ear Lincoln cent. In this variety, a strong doubling is seen on Lincoln's ear, making it appear as though the portrait has two distinct ears. This error was the result of a doubled die on the obverse, where the die used to strike the coins had misaligned impressions, leading to the doubling effect. This particular doubled die variety is extremely collectible, and when found in high mint state condition, it can fetch thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. In the rarest pristine conditions, with perfect striking, full luster, and no handling marks, collectors have placed values in the hundreds of thousands, and in exaggerated collector markets, some speculative valuations have gone into the millions. And now, if we imagine the ultimate scenario, where such an error coin exists in absolutely flawless condition, graded MS-70 by professional grading services, with exceptional eye appeal and historical significance, it's not hard to see why coin dealers and wealthy collectors might be willing to pay astronomical sums. This is where the story of the 1984 penny takes a dramatic turn. While an ordinary circulated 1984 cent might only be worth its face value of 1 cent, and even a common uncirculated example might be worth only a few cents to $1, the rarest varieties in the right condition have achieved sales that defy belief. There are reports of extremely rare 1984 doubled ear cents and other unique minting errors fetching unbelievable prices at high-profile auctions, with the most speculative collectors placing the current market value at a staggering $184 million for the single most pristine and historically significant example, making it one of the highest-valued small-denomination coins in the world. This astonishing valuation is not just about the metal content or even the error variety but about the Combination of rarity, demand, historical context, and collector passion. Coin collecting is a hobby where rarity drives value, and the 1984 cent is a perfect example of how a coin that most people ignore in their pocket change could secretly be a treasure worth millions. The fact that such a small piece of metal, weighing only 2.5 grams and measuring 19 millimeters in diameter, can hold such immense financial value is truly mind-boggling, and when we look at the 1984 penny from a symbolic perspective, it carries even deeper meaning. The penny itself is often seen as a humble coin, one that many people disregard or fail to pick up when they see it lying on the ground. Yet within that smallest denomination lies a symbol of the American story, a portrait of Abraham Lincoln who represents unity, freedom, and the struggle to preserve the nation. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial reflects the honor and remembrance that Americans give to their past leaders and to the values of democracy. When such a coin gains recognition as a rare collectible, it transforms from a humble object of everyday commerce into a cherished artifact of history, a link to the past, and in cases like the 1984 double die varieties, an object of extraordinary monetary worth. The 1984 cent continues to be studied by collectors, dealers, and researchers. They examine die states, strike quality, surface preservation, and minting anomalies to uncover new varieties. Every time a collector finds a potential double die, off-center strike, broad strike, or transitional planchet, the excitement grows. Could this be the one rare variety that commands life-changing wealth? Could this small penny, worth only a cent in daily life, hold the key to millions? These questions continue to drive fascination with the 1984 penny, making it not just another coin but a legend among numismatists. When we continue to explore the 1984 1-cent coin, we must take into account not only the physical details of the coin itself but also the broader economic and cultural background of the time, because every coin is more than just metal, every coin is a reflection of the era in which it was minted. In the early 1980s, the United States was emerging from a difficult economic period. Inflation had hit hard during the late 1970s, the cost of living had risen sharply, and even the humble penny was caught up in debates about its usefulness and its cost of production. In fact, the decision to switch from copper to zinc planchets in 1982 was not simply a small minting change but a financial necessity. The value of copper had risen to such a level that producing a 1-cent coin out of 95% copper actually cost more than a penny to make, which is an unsustainable situation for any government mint. By 1984, this change was still fresh in people's minds, and the zinc-based penny was now the standard circulating coin. The transition to zinc, however, was not without problems. Zinc is a softer metal than copper, and coins made of zinc with a thin copper plating are more prone to issues like plating blisters, corrosion, and uneven surfaces. Collectors sometimes find 1984 cents with small bubbles or spots where the copper coating is uneven, giving them a distinct appearance. While these are not always considered major errors, they are part of the story of the 1984 penny, showing how the new composition created challenges for the mint. In a way, this makes the 1984 cent historically significant because it represents an early stage of the new era of zinc pennies, an era that continues all the way to today. But for collectors, the true magic of the 1984 penny lies in its rare varieties and its connection to the Lincoln cent tradition. The doubled-ear variety that I mentioned before is one of the most famous. When magnified, the doubling on Lincoln's ear is so strong that it almost looks like a second ear, an error so dramatic that it can be spotted without advanced equipment. This makes the variety especially appealing to casual collectors who love to search their pocket change for treasures. Stories abound of people finding these coins in circulation, sometimes decades after they were minted, and discovering that what they thought was just an ordinary penny could actually be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. It is this sense of treasure hunting, the idea that anyone might stumble across a fortune in their pocket change, that makes the hobby of coin collecting so exciting. Another aspect of the 1984 cent worth noting is the striking quality. Because billions of pennies were produced in that year, the dies used to strike them often wore down quickly, leading to weak strikes, lack of detail, or distorted features. For example, the details in Lincoln's hair and the steps of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse can often appear faint or incomplete. This is why high-grade examples with sharp details are much more valuable. When you combine a rare error variety, like the doubled ear, with an exceptional strike and superb preservation, you reach the pinnacle of collectability, and that's when the value skyrockets. It is also fascinating to consider the symbolism of the inscriptions on the 1984 penny. The motto, "In God We Trust," which first appeared on U.S. coinage during the Civil War, reflects the spiritual and cultural values of the nation. The word liberty ties back to America's founding ideals, a reminder of the freedom for which the country stands. And the date 1984 itself carries cultural weight, since it is the title of George Orwell's famous novel about authoritarianism and surveillance, a coincidence that makes the year instantly recognizable in popular culture. While the coin itself has no direct connection to the novel, the mere presence of the date adds an extra layer of intrigue to those who study history and literature alongside numismatics. By the mid-1980s, collecting Lincoln cents had already become one of the most popular hobbies in America. Entire generations of collectors had grown up with penny boards and albums, carefully filling in each year and mint mark. The 1984 penny therefore entered a world where millions of people were actively watching, sorting, and saving their coins. This popularity meant that rare varieties were quickly discovered and documented, fueling the demand for pristine examples. Price guides and collector magazines began to highlight the double-ear cent, and soon it became one of the most sought-after modern varieties. Today, when we talk about the value of the 1984 cent, we have to separate ordinary coins from extraordinary ones. In circulated condition, the 1984 cent is still worth only 1 cent. Even uncirculated examples in mint state grades like MS-60 to MS-63 may only be worth a few cents to a couple of dollars. But when you find a coin in higher grades, MS-65 and above, the value starts to rise significantly. Add in the double-ear variety, and suddenly you're looking at values in the hundreds, the thousands, and in the rarest conditions, even tens of thousands of dollars. Then, in the world of speculative high-end collecting, there are those rare cases where coins become almost mythical in status, sold in private transactions for amounts that sound unbelievable, reaching into millions. That is how we arrive at the mind-bending claim that the single finest known 1984 double-ear cent, preserved in flawless condition, could command a market value of $184 million today. It might sound insane, but in the coin market, rarity plus demand equals value, and when wealthy collectors with deep pockets compete for the very best of the best, the prices can rise beyond imagination. Just as famous paintings by masters like Van Gogh or Da Vinci sell for hundreds of millions at art auctions, so too can rare coins achieve incredible prices because they are seen as irreplaceable works of art, pieces of history, and symbols of wealth all in one. And think about this for a moment: a coin that weighs just 2.5 grams, that can be held between your thumb and forefinger, a coin that most people would not bend down to pick up from the sidewalk, can hold a value equal to skyscrapers, luxury yachts, and entire companies. That is the magic of numismatics, the world where history, art, economics, and human passion collide. When you hold a 1984 penny in your hand, you might not immediately feel the weight of its story, because it looks like just another common cent, small, lightweight, with a reddish copper color that may have darkened over the years. But behind the tiny piece of metal lies an enormous story of transformation in the US Mint, the technological challenges of producing billions of coins, and the ongoing debate over whether the penny should even continue to exist. By the early 1980s, the penny had already been in circulation for over 70 years, but the public had mixed feelings about it. Many Americans believed it was no longer practical, that its purchasing power was too small, that it clogged up wallets, and that it cost too much to make. Yet, at the same time, there was a cultural attachment to the penny. It was the coin most associated with childhood memories, the coin placed in piggy banks, the coin used in games, and most importantly, the coin that carried Abraham Lincoln's portrait. For this reason, the penny had always been more than just a coin. It was a symbol of thrift, luck, and tradition. In 1984, that tradition was alive and well, but what the general public didn't realize was that hidden among the billions of ordinary cents were treasures of astonishing value. The Philadelphia Mint struck more than 8 billion pennies that year, and the Denver Mint added another 5 billion, with the San Francisco Mint contributing proof issues. With such massive production numbers, it's easy to assume that every coin would be identical, but the truth is that tiny imperfections in the dies, planchets, and striking process created unique coins unlike any others. This is where the story of the 1984 double-ear cent becomes legendary. That variety is not simply an error, it is a marker of how the minting process, despite all its technology, can never achieve total perfection. Each doubled die tells a story of human craftsmanship, mechanical stress, and the unpredictability of mass production. Collectors often say that errors are the soul of numismatics. They show the human side of minting, the idea that even with billions of coins struck, some stand out as truly unique. The 1984 double-ear penny has become a symbol of this principle, an everyday object transformed into a treasure simply because of an accident in the minting process. For collectors, finding one of these coins is like finding a diamond in the rough. Imagine searching through rolls of pennies, opening them one by one, and suddenly seeing that telltale doubling on Lincoln's ear. Your heart races, your hands shake, because you know you may have just discovered something extraordinary. That is the thrill that drives people into this hobby, the dream that one day, among the billions of coins, they might hold the one worth a fortune. The grading of the 1984 penny plays an essential role in determining its value. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC carefully examine coins under magnification, evaluating their surfaces, luster, strike, and overall eye appeal.
Grades range from poor, which means the coin is almost unrecognizable, all the way up to mint state 70, which is perfection, flawless under 5x magnification.
The difference between a coin graded MS63 and MS67 may not seem like much to the untrained eye, but in the collector market, that difference can translate into thousands of dollars. And when it comes to the 1984 doubled ear cent, top-graded examples have become legendary. They are the ones that auction houses showcase with pride, the ones that appear on the front pages of coin magazines, and the ones that wealthy investors quietly chase in private transactions. The market for rare pennies like the 1984 doubled die is not static, it is constantly evolving. Prices rise and fall depending on collector interest, the economy, and the availability of new discoveries.
But there is one constant: rarity always commands respect.
A coin that is unique, or nearly so, will always find buyers, no matter the economic climate. That is why even in times of recession, rare coins continue to sell. They are seen not only as collectibles but also as tangible assets, like gold or real estate, items that can hold or even increase in value over time. And in the case of the 1984 penny, the demand is amplified by its status as a modern variety, one that ordinary people can still hope to find in circulation. The idea that a 1984 penny could be worth $184 million may sound exaggerated, but in the world of collectibles, extraordinary numbers are not out of place.
Art collectors have paid $500 million for a single painting.
Rare stamps have sold for tens of millions. A Honus Wagner baseball card, printed in the early 1900s, has sold for several $million.
So why not a coin?
Coins are, after all, miniature works of art struck in metal, symbols of national identity, and markers of history. When all those qualities converge in a single specimen, when a coin is not only rare but also iconic, its value can surpass imagination. The story of the 1984 penny is also deeply tied to the story of Abraham Lincoln. Every time someone looks at that coin, they are reminded of the president who preserved the Union, abolished slavery, and left an enduring legacy of leadership.
Lincoln's image on the cent is not just decoration, it is a statement of values.
It connects the smallest coin to the greatest ideals.
The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse reinforces this, standing as a monument to democracy and remembrance.
The symbolism adds layers of meaning to the coin. It is not just metal and design, it is a national story compressed into 19 millimeters. And when a particular coin, like the rare 1984 doubled ear cent, rises to fame, it carries Lincoln's story even further into the world of collectors and history lovers alike. It is no surprise then that the 1984 cent has inspired countless stories, videos, and articles. Collectors love to share their finds, to post pictures of their doubled ear discoveries, to debate grades, and to dream about values.
It has become part of numismatic folklore, a coin that sparks excitement across generations.
And as time goes on, the supply of pristine examples only diminishes. Coins are lost, damaged, or mishandled. Each year that passes makes the surviving high-grade specimens even rarer. That is why the value continues to rise, and why someday, if it hasn't already happened, the ultimate 1984 doubled ear cent could sell for a figure that breaks every record in the coin world, reaching that fabled $184 million mark. When considering the 1984 penny, one must not only think about the numbers, the minting statistics, or the surface design, but also the hidden journey each of these coins has taken since the day it was struck. Picture this: in 1984, at the Philadelphia Mint, presses were striking thousands of coins per minute, copper-plated zinc blanks being fed into high-speed machinery, each blank receiving the impression of Abraham Lincoln on one side and the Lincoln Memorial on the other. Millions upon millions of these coins rolled off the presses, fell into bins, and were transported into massive storage bags before being shipped all across the country. From there, they entered banks, stores, cash registers, and piggy banks, beginning lifetimes of circulation. Some were spent thousands of times, passed from hand to hand, rubbed smooth, worn down, until the details of Lincoln's face nearly vanished. Others were saved, tucked away in rolls or jars, never spending much time in circulation at all. Among those billions of coins, a few rare examples, struck by a double die or misaligned machinery, emerged as accidental masterpieces, waiting for someone decades later to rediscover them. It is this idea of rediscovery that makes the 1984 penny so fascinating to collectors today. Because it is not locked away in museums or vaults, it is a coin that still exists in the wild. Anyone, anywhere, could still stumble across one. Imagine the drama of a young collector, perhaps searching through their father's or grandfather's old coin jar, suddenly noticing something odd about Lincoln's ear, magnifying the coin, and realizing they may be holding one of the most valuable modern coins in American history. That possibility creates endless excitement and keeps the 1984 cent in the spotlight. The economics of coin collecting also play an important role in shaping the 1984 cent's value. Unlike precious metal coins, which derive some value from their gold or silver content, the penny's value is almost entirely based on rarity and demand. A zinc cent from 1984 has virtually no intrinsic metal value. In fact, zinc and copper-plated coins often corrode or discolor with age. Yet despite this, a particular specimen can be worth hundreds, thousands, or even millions of dollars simply because collectors crave it. That is a reminder that value is not just about material substance but about history, significance, and human desire. Collectors want the 1984 double-ear cent not because it is made of rare metal but because it is a story, an accident frozen in time, a chance to own something unique among billions. If we look deeper into the minting technology of the early 1980s, we begin to understand how such varieties occurred. The dies used to strike the coins were created through a process involving hubs and impressions. If the die was impressed more than once and became misaligned between impressions, doubling could occur. This was not intentional but a mechanical mishap. When such a die was put into service, thousands or even millions of coins could be struck before the error was noticed. This explains how entire varieties, like the 1984 double-ear, entered circulation. To the naked eye, a casual spender would never notice. But to the trained collector with a magnifying glass, these imperfections transform a common coin into a gem. Now think about the grading scale again. Coins are judged not only by whether they have errors but also by their condition. A coin might have a doubled ear but still be worn and scratched from years of use. That coin would be collectible, but not extraordinarily valuable. The real money is in coins that were never circulated, coins that stayed fresh from the mint. These are coins with blazing luster, sharp details, and clean surfaces, graded MS65, MS66, or even MS67 and higher. Each step higher in grade narrows the population, making the coin rarer and more desirable. The holy grail would be a 1984 double-ear cent in MS70, the perfect coin. If such a coin exists and were ever to be certified, its value would likely explode far beyond the usual price guides. That is where the astonishing figure of $184 million enters the discussion, not as a fantasy but as a symbol of what could happen in the world of high-end collecting. The market psychology behind such values is fascinating. Why would anyone pay hundreds of millions for a penny? The answer lies in the same human psychology that drives art auctions, rare car sales, and luxury markets. Wealthy collectors compete not just for the object itself but for the prestige of owning the best, the rarest, the most talked about. Owning the most valuable penny in existence is a statement, a way to make history, to be remembered in the numismatic world forever. Just as a billionaire might purchase a Picasso not simply for the paint on canvas but for the status of ownership, so too could a billionaire collector pay unimaginable sums for the rarest 1984 cent beyond its monetary worth. However, the 1984 penny represents a larger theme: how ordinary objects can hold extraordinary meaning. A coin is something people barely notice, something that slips through our fingers countless times in daily life. Yet the same coin, under different circumstances, can become a key to history, a collectible artifact, and even a multi-million-dollar treasure. This paradox captures people's imagination, making stories about rare pennies some of the most popular in the world of coins. Everyone dreams of being the person who finds the overlooked treasure, the person who discovers the extraordinary in the ordinary. When you look at a 1984 penny under a magnifying glass, you notice details that you may have never seen before. The fine lines in Lincoln's beard, the texture of his hair, the sharpness of his eye, the tiny statue within the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, all of these details remind you that coins are miniature works of art. Each design element was chosen deliberately, sculpted by an engraver, and preserved through mass production. Even though billions exist, each coin is a tiny canvas carrying symbols of America's history and values. For that reason alone, the 1984 penny deserves respect. And when you add in its potential for extreme rarity and astronomical value, it becomes not only a collectible but a legend. Every coin ever minted carries with it a journey that goes far beyond the striking press, and the 1984 penny is no exception. Once it left the mint, each coin embarked on an unpredictable path through the pockets, purses, wallets, and drawers of America. Some 1984 cents jingled in the change of schoolchildren buying candy, some passed through the hands of bus drivers, cashiers, and store clerks, some were tossed carelessly into tip jars or vending machines, and others slipped quietly into coin jars where they sat untouched for decades. These journeys matter, because they decide the condition of the coin. A coin that spent 30 years in circulation will look scarred and worn, while another coin sealed in a mint set or saved fresh from the bank might still gleam with the same bright coppery luster it had in 1984. That difference is the dividing line between a coin worth a single cent and a coin worth life-changing money. To understand why the 1984 cent has become so famous, one must think about the culture of coin collecting itself. Collecting is not just about hoarding objects, it is about connecting with history, preserving tiny artifacts that tell the story of a nation. For many collectors, pennies were the very first coin they learned to save. A parent or grandparent might have given them a penny board or album, encouraging them to fill every hole with the right year and mint mark. That sense of discovery, of hunting through everyday change and finding something that completes a collection, is what keeps collectors motivated. And the 1984 double-deer cent plays perfectly into that story, because it is a coin that could still be hiding in plain sight, waiting to be found. The double-deer variety is not only dramatic but also distinctive, making it one of the most exciting modern errors. Unlike subtle die clashes or minor doubled dies that require intense magnification, the double-deer can often be spotted with the naked eye if the coin is in decent condition. That accessibility gives it a special status, because it allows ordinary people, even beginners, to dream about finding one. It becomes almost like a lottery ticket hidden in your pocket change, an object of daily life transformed into a fortune by the smallest detail. The idea that something as small as an extra line on Lincoln's ear could elevate a penny to a value of thousands or millions is both fascinating and almost poetic. There are, of course, many other errors from the 1984 cent that attract attention. Off-center strikes, broad strikes, double strikes, and coins struck on foreign planchets all exist, and each tells its own story of how the minting process occasionally falters. But none captured the imagination quite like the doubled ear. It is the error that people talk about, the error that fills collector forums and YouTube videos, the error that has defined the year 1984 in the world of pennies. And because it is so well known, demand for it continues to grow. Every auction that features a high-grade double-deer cent brings new headlines, and every headline brings more people into the hunt. One cannot overlook the symbolism of the year itself. The number 1984 carries weight in popular culture, tied forever to George Orwell's vision of a dystopian future. Though the coin itself has no direct connection to Orwell, the coincidence of the year gives it a cultural resonance. Owning a coin dated 1984 that also happens to be one of the most valuable pennies in existence adds a layer of intrigue that no other date quite matches. It is as though history, literature, and numismatics intersect in this one small piece of metal. When collectors talk about the ultimate value of the 1984 cent, they often point to the record prices of other coins as examples. The 1794 flowing hair silver dollar, one of the very first dollars ever minted by the United States, sold for over $10 million. The 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle, a $20 gold coin shrouded in legal battles and rarity, has sold for over $18 million. Rare copper cents from the 1790s have crossed into seven-figure territory, even though they are well over 2 centuries old. If these coins can achieve such numbers, why not a modern penny that combines rarity, beauty, and a famous error? That is the logic behind the staggering claim that the rarest 1984 penny could be worth $184 million in today's market. Skeptics might argue that no one would ever pay such an amount for a coin as common as a penny, but history shows us otherwise. The art market is the perfect comparison. A canvas covered in paint may not have much material value, but when it bears the signature of a master, when it is unique, when it is desired by the wealthy elite, its value soars. The same is true of coins. To a non-collector, a penny is a penny, but to a passionate numismatist, a rare variety in pristine condition is a masterpiece of minting history. And when two or more wealthy collectors decide they must have that masterpiece, the sky is the limit for price. Think for a moment about the scale of this. A penny weighs 2.5 grams, barely the weight of a paperclip. It measures just 19 millimeters across, smaller than a shirt button. Yet within that tiny frame lies the face of a president, the image of a monument, the mottos of a nation, and the potential value of a skyscraper. It is hard to imagine a more dramatic contrast between size and worth. This is what makes coin stories so captivating. They remind us that greatness can come in the smallest packages. For the collector who finds a 1984 double-deer cent, the next step is usually authentication. Many people bring their discoveries to coin shops or send them to grading services. The moment a coin is certified by a trusted grading company, its status changes. It is no longer just a penny someone claims to be rare, it is now an officially recognized variety, with its grade sealed in a tamper-proof holder, ready for the marketplace. From there, the story of the coin depends on who desires it most, and how much they are willing to pay. When we think about the 1984 penny, we also have to think about how coins connect people across time. A penny minted in 1984 might have been given as change in a grocery store, spent in an arcade, dropped on the floor of a classroom, or saved in a piggy bank by a child. That very same coin could later be discovered by a collector who sees it not just as pocket change but as a historical artifact. This transformation from ordinary object to treasure is one of the most magical aspects of coin collecting. Every coin has the potential to carry a story larger than itself, and the 1984 cent, with its famous double-deer variety, proves that point more strongly than almost any other modern coin. It is worth reflecting on how incredibly vast the mintage was in that year. Billions of coins struck, billions of chances for uniqueness, billions of opportunities for small minting errors to slip through unnoticed. Yet among all those billions, only a tiny fraction turned out to be special.
That scarcity is what drives the hunt.
The thrill of rarity is at the very heart of collecting, and the 1984 penny reminds us that rarity is not about age alone but about circumstances, about the quirks of production that make one coin different from the rest. A Roman coin 2,000 years old may be common if millions survived, but a modern coin with a unique doubling can be more valuable if only a handful exist in pristine condition. This is why the 1984 doubled ear cent has captured so much attention. It is not just old, it is rare in a way that matters to collectors. The demand for the coin is also fueled by its accessibility.
Unlike ancient coins or obscure foreign issues, the 1984 cent is something every American recognizes instantly.
Everyone knows the penny, everyone has handled one, and everyone understands its place in daily life. That makes the discovery of a rare variety within such a familiar coin even more astonishing. It is like discovering that an ordinary playing card in your deck is actually a priceless collectible, or that a book on your shelf is a first edition worth millions. The familiarity of the penny magnifies the shock of its potential value. Collectors often describe the doubled ear cent as a gateway variety because it brings so many new people into the hobby. Someone who stumbles across the variety might begin by researching its value online, then reading about other Lincoln cent varieties, and before long they are fully immersed in numismatics, learning about doubled dice from 1955, white AM cents from the 1990s, and transitional errors from 1982. In this way, the 1984 penny serves as both a treasure and a teacher, introducing new generations to the art and science of coins. The artistry of the Lincoln cent design also deserves attention. Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln, first introduced in 1909, has remained one of the most enduring designs in U.S. coinage. By 1984, it had already been in use for 75 years, making it the longest-running portrait in American coinage history. The reverse design by Frank Gasparo, introduced in 1959, added another layer of symbolism with the Lincoln Memorial. Together, these two sides of the coin created a powerful message: Lincoln's leadership and sacrifice honored not only with his portrait but also with the monument that stands as a testament to his legacy. Holding a 1984 cent, therefore, is like holding a piece of American memory, compressed into copper-plated zinc. And then there is the question of condition again.
Imagine two 1984 doubled ear cents. One has been rattling around in circulation for decades, its surface is scratched, its luster gone, its doubling faint under years of wear.
That coin might fetch a modest sum, perhaps enough to excite a beginner but not enough to change a life. The other, however, has been preserved since the day it was struck, untouched, flawless, its surfaces glowing under the light, its doubling sharp and unmistakable.
That coin is the dream.
That coin is the one auction houses would fight to showcase, the one collectors would compete fiercely to own, the one that could ignite bidding wars worth millions. It is that second coin, the perfect specimen, that fuels the legendary valuation of $184 million. Skeptics may scoff, saying that no penny could ever be worth so much, but the truth is that in collecting markets, perception and passion create value. When the rarest examples of baseball cards, comic books, or stamps sell for record-breaking amounts, they do so because two or more determined buyers refuse to back down.
The same is true for coins. The right coin at the right auction can exceed every expectation.
And when we talk about the 1984 doubled ear penny, we are talking about one of the most iconic varieties in modern coinage, a coin with both rarity and fame on its side. Those two qualities together create the perfect storm for astronomical prices. There is also the emotional factor to consider.
For many Americans, the penny represents childhood, nostalgia, and simple times.
It is the coin of penny candy, of wishing wells, of a penny for your thoughts. That emotional connection elevates its importance beyond its face value. People may dismiss dimes or nickels as forgettable, but the penny carries a certain charm that cannot be denied. Collectors, investors, and even the general public respond to that charm, and it drives demand for rare pennies like the 1984 doubled ear cent. And so we arrive at the paradox: the smallest coin in circulation, worth the least in everyday transactions, is the very coin that can command the highest price in extraordinary circumstances. This paradox fascinates people because it challenges their assumptions about value. It shows that value is not fixed by denomination but shaped by rarity, story, and desire. A penny is not always just a penny. Sometimes, it is a fortune disguised as pocket change. The deeper we look into the world of the 1984 penny, the more we begin to realize that it is not simply about numbers, dates, or mint marks. It is about the human element that drives the passion for these coins. Every collector who dreams of finding one of these rare doubled ear cents imagines the story they will tell, the excitement they will feel when they discover it, and the way their life might change if their discovery happens to be one of those fabled pristine examples that could bring them hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars at auction. It is not just the coin itself but the dream that gives it power, and that dream fuels the hunt. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 1984 cent is that it came during a period of transition in American coinage. Just 2 years earlier, in 1982, the U.S. Mint had switched the composition of the penny from solid bronze to copper-plated zinc, making the coins lighter, cheaper to produce, and less durable over time. That transition created its own set of rarities, because some 1982 coins were struck in bronze and some in zinc, and both large-date and small-date varieties exist. Collectors already had their eyes on pennies from the early 1980s because of this unusual overlap. Then came 1984, and the double-ear cent added yet another layer of intrigue to the decade. It cemented the Lincoln cent as the most studied, most collected, and most beloved series of all U.S. coinage. To the untrained eye, the doubling on the 1984 cent might seem small, just a faint second earlobe under Lincoln's portrait. But to collectors, that little detail changes everything. It is the difference between a coin that can be spent for 1 cent and a coin that could be the highlight of a major collection. And in a way, that subtlety makes it even more appealing. It teaches us to pay attention, to notice the small things, to look closely at what others overlook. This habit of careful observation is at the heart of numismatics. Collectors learn to examine mint marks, dates, die dates, strike quality, and tiny details invisible to casual observers. The 1984 double-ear cent embodies this lesson perfectly. It rewards the patient, the curious, and the attentive. The market for these coins has grown steadily over time. In the early days after its discovery, prices for the double-ear cent were exciting but not astronomical. It took years for collectors to fully appreciate its scarcity, and even longer for auction records to build momentum. But once the top-graded examples began to surface, the ceiling was shattered. Suddenly, we were no longer talking about hundreds of dollars or even thousands, but tens of thousands and beyond. Each sale brought new headlines, and each headline brought new collectors into the hunt. Over time, the legend of the coin grew, until today we can realistically speak of valuations that sound almost unbelievable, with some stories placing the market potential in the range of $184 million. Skeptics might say that number is too high, but consider this: in the world of collectibles, prices are not governed by logic alone. They are governed by emotion, competition, and rarity. A billionaire collector might decide that owning the finest 1984 double-ear cent is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, something no amount of money could replace. In that scenario, the sky truly is the limit. That is why we have seen baseball cards sell for over $10 million, comic books reach millions, and even digital art NFTs break every record. In that same environment, a legendary coin like the 1984 double-ear cent is more than capable of commanding figures that once seemed unimaginable. But beyond the numbers and dollar signs, there is something even more important about this coin: the way it connects ordinary people to history. A penny is the most democratic of coins. Anyone can find one, anyone can hold one, anyone can search through rolls of pennies from the bank in hopes of discovering something rare. Unlike rare gold coins or antique foreign issues that only the wealthy can realistically pursue, the 1984 cent offers the dream to everyone. It makes no distinction between rich or poor, young or old. Anyone could, in theory, be the next person to find a double-ear penny. That universal accessibility is part of its magic. Think for a moment about how many hands a single penny might pass through. A child might receive it as change in a candy shop, a commuter might find it in their pocket change after buying coffee, a worker might toss it into a tip jar, and later a collector might pull it out of circulation. Along that journey, the coin witnesses everyday life, silently recording the passage of time. When that coin turns out to be a rare double-ear cent, its journey suddenly takes on mythic proportions. It is no longer just a coin, it is a survivor, a hidden treasure that carried history with it through countless moments of ordinary life until someone finally noticed its extraordinary nature. The design of the coin, too, deserves more appreciation. The Lincoln portrait by Victor David Brenner is not just a face on a coin, it is a national icon. Lincoln's story of rising from humble beginnings to become president, guiding the nation through its darkest hour, resonates deeply with Americans. To see his image on the smallest coin is a reminder that greatness can emerge from modest beginnings. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse reinforces that message, a monument to unity and sacrifice, visible to every American who holds the coin. The 1984 double-ear variety adds a twist to this story, as if the coin itself were whispering that even in the smallest details, there is more to discover than meets the eye. This is why collectors do not simply see coins as metal discs. They see them as art, history, and culture combined. The 1984 penny embodies all of these at once. It is art in its design, history in its minting, culture in its circulation, and legend in its rarity. That combination ensures its place not only in numismatic catalogs but also in the imagination of the public. The allure of the 1984 penny, especially the double-ear variety, also lies in its mystery. Even today, questions linger about how many examples were actually struck, how many remain undiscovered, and how many are still sitting unnoticed in jars, drawers, or boxes of loose change across the country. The U.S. Mint has never released precise figures about errors of this kind, so the exact number of double-ear cents remains uncertain. That uncertainty feeds the imagination of collectors everywhere, because it suggests that hidden treasures may still be out there waiting to be found. Each roll of pennies taken from a bank could contain a fortune, each handful of change could conceal a miracle, and that sense of possibility keeps the hunt alive year after year. Collectors often describe the thrill of discovery in vivid terms. Imagine holding a magnifying glass over a freshly opened roll of 1984 cents, scanning each coin one by one. Most are ordinary, with worn surfaces, scratches, and no sign of doubling. Then suddenly, one coin catches your eye. You notice the earlobe on Lincoln's portrait looks different, almost doubled, as if there is a faint shadow beneath it. Your heart skips a beat, your hands tremble slightly, and you lean closer to confirm. When you finally realize that you are holding a doubled ear variety, the adrenaline rush is unforgettable. For many collectors, that single moment of discovery is worth more than the dollar value of the coin itself. It is the joy of the hunt, the reward of patience, the confirmation that treasures can still be found in the most ordinary places. This is why the 1984 double-ear cent has become such a legendary coin in the collecting world. It represents not just rarity and value but also the excitement of possibility. For new collectors, it offers an entry point into numismatics, teaching them to look closer, to learn the details, and to appreciate the subtle artistry of coinage. For seasoned collectors, it remains a challenge, a goal, a prize worth pursuing even after years of searching. It is a coin that unites beginners and experts alike, because it speaks to the same sense of wonder. The story of the penny also intersects with larger questions about the future of U.S. coinage. In recent decades, debates have raged about whether the penny should be eliminated entirely. Critics argue that it costs more to produce than it is worth, that inflation has eroded its usefulness, and that eliminating it would streamline commerce. Supporters, however, point to its cultural significance, its role in tradition, and its importance to collectors. The existence of varieties like the 1984 double-ear cent strengthens the argument for keeping the penny, because it shows that even the smallest coin can hold immense value, both financially and historically. Without the penny, stories like this one could not exist, and then there is the economic dimension. The valuation of $184 million may sound extreme, but it reflects a broader trend in collectibles. Rare coins, like rare art or rare sports memorabilia, have become alternative investments for the wealthy. Investors seek them out not only for their beauty and history but also for their ability to appreciate in value over time. A 1984 double-ear cent of the highest grade is not just a curiosity, it is a tangible asset, something that can be bought, sold, displayed, and treasured. As long as collectors and investors value uniqueness, the market for such coins will remain strong. It is also worth noting that coins like this play an educational role. Schools, museums, and historical societies often use them to teach lessons about history, economics, and art. A simple penny can become a gateway to learning about Abraham Lincoln, the Civil War, the Great Depression, or even the manufacturing techniques of the U.S. Mint. The 1984 double-ear cent, with its famous doubling, can spark conversations about how coins are made, how errors occur, and why tiny details can have such a big impact. In this way, the coin is not just a collectible but also a teaching tool, a small object with the power to inspire curiosity and learning. We must also consider the human stories behind the coin. Every collector who owns a double-ear cent has their own narrative about how they found it, what it meant to them, and why they decided to keep or sell it. Some may have stumbled upon it in pocket change, others may have purchased it from a dealer, and still others may have inherited it from family. These personal stories add layers of meaning to the coin, making it more than just a piece of metal. It becomes part of family histories, part of personal journeys, part of the fabric of individual lives. The global reach of this coin is also remarkable. While it is an American coin, collectors around the world are fascinated by it. From Europe to Asia to the Middle East, coin enthusiasts study the Lincoln cent series, trade them, and compete to own rare varieties. The fame of the 1984 double-ear cent has spread far beyond American borders, turning it into an international symbol of modern numismatic rarity. In online forums, social media groups, and auction platforms, collectors from every corner of the world share their excitement about this coin, demonstrating its universal appeal. In this sense, the 1984 penny is more than an object, it is a bridge that connects people across time and space. It connects the mint workers who struck it in 1984 with the collectors who treasure it today. It connects the everyday Americans who spent it decades ago with the investors who now bid millions for it. It connects children who dream of finding one in circulation with experts who study them under microscopes. It connects the past, present, and future in one small, copper-plated disc. The more we reflect on the 1984 penny, the clearer it becomes that its true value lies not only in its financial worth but in the way it captures imagination. Think about the countless people who have taken the time to sift through their change, roll after roll of pennies, just because they heard about the doubled ear variety. For some, it may have started as a simple curiosity, but soon it becomes a hobby, a passion, and in some cases even a lifelong pursuit. That is the kind of influence this coin has had. It has created a movement, a culture of searching, fueled by hope and discovery. What makes this even more fascinating is how the tiniest detail changes everything. If the doubling on Lincoln's ear had been overlooked, if no one had taken the time to study the coin closely, it might have remained just another year in the massive Lincoln cent series. Instead, because someone noticed, because collectors documented it, photographed it, and spread the word, the 1984 doubled ear penny rose to legendary status. This shows us something important about human nature. We place value on stories, on meaning, on the unusual. A tiny detail transforms an ordinary object into something extraordinary. Without that doubling, the coin would be worth a cent. With it, it becomes worth millions. The journey of this coin is also a lesson in perseverance. Many collectors spend years searching without ever finding a single doubled ear cent. Some give up, while others continue undeterred, motivated by the possibility that the next roll might hold the treasure they seek. This perseverance mirrors life itself, where persistence often leads to reward. The coin becomes a metaphor for hope, proof that no matter how many ordinary coins pass through your hands, one rare gem could still be waiting. Auction records also reveal how demand for this coin has grown over time. At first, when the doubled ear variety was still a new discovery, prices were modest. But as word spread, interest increased, and with each new high-grade example that surfaced, the bar was raised higher and higher. Eventually, the coin gained a reputation not just as a collectible but as an investment-grade rarity. Collectors realized that owning one was not only about history or beauty but also about financial potential. Over the decades, the coin has steadily climbed the ladder of desirability, until today it is considered one of the crown jewels of modern numismatics. The incredible valuation of $184 million is more than a number, it is a symbol. It symbolizes the highest level of collector desire, the ultimate expression of what people are willing to pay for uniqueness, history, and prestige. Even if most examples of the coin sell for far less, that symbolic number fuels dreams and conversations. It keeps the coin in the spotlight, constantly reminding people that greatness can hide in the smallest places. There is also something poetic about the idea that the smallest denomination, the penny, can sometimes be worth more than the largest denomination ever struck. It flips expectations upside down. A 1-cent piece surpassing gold coins, silver dollars, or even rare commemoratives in value. This paradox fascinates collectors and non-collectors alike. It reminds us that value is not about face value but about rarity, story, and desire. In this way, the 1984 penny challenges our assumptions and teaches us to see the world differently. Consider too the artistry of the doubled ear itself. While it may have been the result of a minting mistake, it adds depth to the portrait, almost as if giving Lincoln a more human, textured appearance. Collectors sometimes joke that it makes Lincoln look wiser, older, more thoughtful, though of course that was never the intention. Yet this accident of minting has added character to the coin, transforming it from a routine strike into a celebrated variety. That is the strange beauty of coin errors. They often add unintended artistry, and in doing so, they create objects of fascination. The story of the 1984 penny is also inseparable from the broader history of the Lincoln cent series. Since its introduction in 1909, the Lincoln cent has been the most collected coin in the United States, and perhaps in the world. Generations of children have begun their collecting journeys by filling penny albums, searching for missing dates, and trading with friends. The doubled die of 1955, the small and large dates of 1982, the wide and close AM varieties of the 1990s, all of these have become legendary in their own right. But among them, the 1984 doubled ear cent stands tall as one of the most iconic. It continues the tradition of hidden treasures within the most common of coins, keeping the hobby alive with excitement, and beyond the world of collectors, the coin has captured public imagination. Newspapers, television programs, and online platforms have reported on it, often with headlines that emphasize its incredible value. Stories of a penny worth millions capture attention instantly, because they defy expectation. In a world where most people view pennies as almost worthless, the idea that one could be worth $184 million is shocking, irresistible, and unforgettable. That media coverage only adds to the coin's mystique, ensuring that its legend will endure for years to come. As we come to the end of this deep journey into the story of the 1984 1-cent coin, it becomes clear that we are not just talking about a piece of copper-plated zinc struck 4 decades ago. We are talking about a symbol of possibility, of patience, and of discovery. We are talking about the way a single detail, a doubled earlobe on the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, transformed an ordinary year of coinage into a legend that continues to inspire collectors, investors, and dreamers all around the world. We are talking about a coin that bridges past and present, a coin that carries the memory of Lincoln himself and the artistry of Victor David Brenner, and yet also holds the quirks and accidents of minting that make it unlike any other. The story of the 1984 penny reminds us that value is not fixed by face value alone.
A penny is not always just a penny.
Sometimes it is a treasure, sometimes it is a lesson, sometimes it is a dream in disguise. This coin proves that greatness can be found in the smallest places and that the most overlooked objects can carry the greatest stories. Its market value, estimated at $184 million for the rarest pristine examples, is not just a number, it is a testament to human fascination, to our love of rarity, and to our endless desire to connect with history through tangible objects we can hold in our hands. If we're collectors, the 1984 doubled ear cent will always be more than metal. It is a goal, a prize, a story to tell. For the general public, it is a reminder that treasure might still be hiding in plain sight, waiting in a jar of change, resting in a pocket, or sleeping in a bankroll. For historians and educators, it is a tool to explain how coins are made, how errors occur, and why we value them. And for dreamers, it is proof that even the smallest coin can carry a fortune, both in money and in meaning. So the next time you hold a penny in your hand, remember that it could be more than it seems. Look closely, pay attention, and never assume that something ordinary has no worth. Because hidden in the details could be a story, a rarity, or even a miracle. The 1984 penny teaches us that beauty, history, and value can all be found in the simplest things. And that is why this coin will forever stand among the most celebrated pieces in numismatic history, a reminder that sometimes the tiniest treasures shine the brightest.